Guys, today I want to talk with you about Perfume, the story of a murderer, a historical fantasy slash horror fantasy novel by Patrick Suskind. The novel was published in 1985 and as of now it has been translated into 49 different languages, as well as it is considered to be one of the best selling German novels of 20th century. In 2010, a Russian musical adaptation of the novel premiered. In 2018, a German miniseries inspired by the novel was released. And in 2022, Netflix began to stream a movie that I have not seen myself, but which seems to be a very loosely based on Patrick Suskind's novel as well. However, the most well-known and arguably the most loyal adaptation of Perfume was released in film form in 2006. As per usual, we will start this video with a short synopsis, then proceed to the non-spoiler review and wrap this video up with the spoilers. If you haven't read Perfume, the story of a murderer yet, then do not worry. I will make sure to let you know when the spoilers begin. So, the Perfume is set in 4 different locations in France, and it starts in the year 1738. From the first glance, the premise of this novel is absurdly simple. In it, we get to follow the life of Jean-Baptiste, an orphan born in the slums and instantly left to die. Jean-Baptiste, however, is not an ordinary baby. He was born completely odorless and yet with an exceptional sense of smell, making him a dangerous outsider with obsessive goals and no remorse. Now, I have to point out that I have a weird attachment to this book. I saw the movie adaptation of the novel practically as soon as it came out when I was around 13-14 years old, and the movie left me speechless. It showed me the world in a way that I never thought of looking at before. It got stuck in my mind so deeply that when I realized that the movie is based on a novel, I rushed to the library to get a copy. And yes, when I think about it now, I feel like the movie and the book should probably not be consumed by someone as young as a 14-year-old, taking into consideration its gruesome subject matter, realistic portrayal of life in slums, the very predatory serial killer, and, well, orgy scenes. But what's done is done. And for the reasons unknown, Perfume still has an inexplicable hold on me. That's why when I saw it in a bookstore a little while ago, I knew I just have to get it and give it another go. Now that I'm done rereading this novel approximately 15 years after I read it for the first time, I still can't say that I like this book. It's rather slow, at times even boring. It's difficult to read and a big chunk of it feels completely out of place. And yet, at the exact same time, this novel is absolutely remarkable. It's simply one of those books that you have to read at least once in your lifetime. And before we go any further and talk about the things that make this book one of a kind, I would like to point out a little bit of trivia. While it is not actually confirmed, it is widely believed that Patrick Suskind's inspiration for this novel came from the real-life story of Manuel Blanco Roma Santa, the first recorded Spanish serial killer, who has been convicted of killing 9 women and children, though people believe that this number could actually be as high as 20 or even more. After killing his victims, he would also sell their clothes and extract their body fat to make soap. So now that you know that this man might have been the real-life inspiration for the author who wrote Perfume, I guess you can imagine what kind of main protagonist we're dealing with here. Jean-Baptiste is a wonderfully crafted character. He is a loner, an outcast, someone who was unwanted by his mother and abandoned by the people who were ought to take care of him. The fact that he was born without a body odor, while insignificant on paper, makes him alien to those who encounter him. This one thing puts up a wall between him and the others, forcing Jean-Baptiste to segregate himself, make him feel insignificant, invisible. Patrick Suskind touches upon the idea of whether nature or nurture is at play when it comes to Jean-Baptiste. On one hand, he could easily be identified as a sociopath who is unable to empathize with other people and who doesn't care whom he needs to use to hurt in order to satisfy his own messed up desires. On the other hand, the author managed to write this monster in such a manner that at times the reader could find a way to sympathize with him, to wonder if Jean Baptiste would be the way he is if he had grown up surrounded by love and support. Because after all, why should Jean Baptiste value the lives of others if others refuse to see him for anything else than a spawn of the devil, for merely existing? And it's not only the ability of writing an incredibly compelling and weirdly repulsive character that Patrick Suskind excels at. Perfume has to be the only novel that I have personally read that manages to create such a vivid world using scents alone. We often do not think about the importance of smell, but the average human being is able to distinguish more than 1 trillion scents, and the author masterfully uses this book to explore the power of scent and its ability to evoke memories and emotions, as well as raises questions about the relationship between identity, individuality, and social conformity. Overall, Perfume is a dark and disturbing novel that explores some of the most fundamental questions of human existence. The book is notable for its incredibly detailed descriptions and its exploration of the darker side of human nature, as well as its commentary on the nature of beauty and the pursuit of perfection. While it is not a typical horror crime novel one would expect from the title alone, it's the type of book that will embed in your brain, make you feel uncomfortable, force you to think. And on that note, we will be moving to the spoiler review. So if you haven't read Perfume, the story of the murderer yet, which I believe you absolutely should, now's a great time for you to click off this video. So if you are familiar with this novel, you know very well yourself that the plot of this book, as well as basically every single action Jean Baptiste has ever taken, were driven solely by his desire to create the ultimate fragrance. The novel is divided into 4 parts, each focusing on a different phase on Jean Baptiste's life. In the first part, Jean Baptiste is born in the slums of Paris and abandoned by his mother. Already as a baby, he is pushed away by a wet nurse who refuses to nurse him because she believes him to be possessed by the devil, showing to us that Jean Baptiste doesn't need to do anything at all in order to be feared, as well as foreshadowing the lonely life he's about to lead. He grows up in an orphanage and discovers his talent for identifying and cataloging scents, something that quickly turns from curiosity to an obsession. In the second part, Jean Baptiste leaves the orphanage and begins to learn the art of perfumery. He eventually becomes a master perfumer himself, and this is the part where we see just how little humanity Jean Baptiste possesses, as well as just how far he is willing to go in order to feed into his obsession with creating the perfect scent, which leads him to his first murder. And boy, that first kill chilled me to the bone. The way he observes women as if he is the predator and the women are nothing, they're not even human. Killing for him feels as normal of a process as plucking flowers. And what is even scarier is that after the scene of him killing this woman, we get the scenes of him proceeding to work on his perfumes, and it is so well written. His fascination with the scents he manages to create is so captivating that I notice myself starting to ignore the fact that I am following the life of a murderer, that he's a man without compassion, without conscience. This is how absorbed with Jean Baptiste's work I became. And what's interesting to point out as well is that despite the author being so good at writing the kill scenes, only the first and the last Jean Baptiste murders were ever shown in the book, despite him killing a total of 24 young women in total. 24! Let that sink in. In the third part of the book, Jean Baptiste is arrested and sentenced to death, but he escapes and becomes a hermit living in a mountain cave. Now, to be honest with you, this is where the novel lost me. I mean, I can understand that maybe this particular thing was left in the story in order to show just how far from a regular human being Jean Baptiste actually is. If anything, I would argue that in this third part of the book, Jean Baptiste barely even exists. He doesn't show any human emotions whatsoever. He simply survives. And at the same time, I can't even say that his need of survival is that strong. He is lesser than a human, lesser than an animal. He simply exists. In the final part, we see Jean-Baptiste learning to use the sense he creates in order to manipulate human emotions. All that this does, though, is confirming to Jean-Baptiste that even this control he has over people, even their adoration of him, doesn't bring him any satisfaction. At this point in the novel, we have a character who spent his life obsessing over perfection, obsessing over this need to be seen and be loved. A character who killed without any remorse, who desecrated bodies and manipulated people in order to achieve a goal, to create his masterpiece, which did not end up bringing him any closer to happiness. Which brings us to the end of the novel. Jean-Baptiste going back to the fish market, where he was supposed to die just hours after being born, spilling the contents of his best fragrance, the fragrance that's supposed to induce love, over himself, and allowing the crazy mob to tear him into pieces and eat him bit by bit. Now that's a brutal ending I can get behind. I guess it is debatable whether it's an ending this character deserved for the crimes he committed. I mean, being ripped apart has to be the worst kind of execution available. And the fact that Jean-Baptiste did this voluntarily just shows that he doesn't see the value in his life, the same way he didn't see the value of the lives of the women he killed. And yet, at the same time, it could be argued that a monster like Jean-Baptiste should not have had an opportunity to choose in what way he's supposed to die. That by choosing to be ripped apart and eaten, for the first time in his life, Jean-Baptiste, in some fucked up way, was actually loved, seen, and uncontrollably desired. For the first time in his life, he was a part of the crowd. Now, if we decide not to look at the events of the novel quite so literally, we can say that Perfume is an exploration of the nature of beauty and its relationship to morality. Suskind uses Jean-Baptiste's quest for the perfect scent as a metaphor for the human desire for perfection and the destructive consequences of pursuing that desire to its extreme. And I found all of that to be truly fascinating. But that's just my opinion. What about yours?